Hello, 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 Nori here. Welcome to another episode of Love in Deep Space. And would you look at the audacity of this man trying to chat me up after not coming home until the heart pity hit 120 pulse. And then I had to do extra 5 for the damn crate. I am not talking to you, Silas. Go sit on the couch where you belong. That's right, not a word. Anyhow, I hope you guys are doing good. I hope the excitement has finally settled in. I was waiting for the excitement of the update to kind of simmer down and settle so we can go back to talking about the social issues again. And the topic that I have for today that is related to the previous discourse about parasocialism and Lad's tweet is morality or moral policing versus freedom of expression, or freedom of creative expression, I should say. Now, everything we talk about is generally related to Lad's tweet, so this is going to be no different. And as always, this topic is going to be just as complex as all the other previous topics we've discussed. Because there's so much of nuance in here that needs to be carefully scrutinized. Anyway, now I would like to bring your attention and your memory back to the previous video that I made. No, not the one where I'm having a complete and total mental breakdown about Silas not coming home, but the one before that, about parasocialism and Lad's tweet. That video was a video where I briefly mentioned this little incident about scrolling through my Twitter timeline and then coming across a fan art of the MC. And at first glance, I thought that MC was a child because that's how she was drawn. She wore this little short dress, from Caleb's birthday banner. Yes, that blue dress. And she had pigtails. Now, obviously, the adult MC doesn't have pigtails. Hence, this version of MC in this fan art looked like a child, like a little girl. And when I looked at it, at first glance, I was like, that suspiciously looks like a child. And so basically, the fan art was Caleb in a grown-ass adult Caleb, by the way, in his military Far Space Fleet Colonel uniform, sitting on a sofa, and MC as this little girl sitting on his lap. That little image jarred me. Okay, that was jarring to see. And I don't think I was the only one, because other people also pointed it out. They were like, hey, what is this? This just makes Caleb look even more worse. And when I say even more worse, I'm saying how poorly he always gets mischaracterized. And we all know the whole incestuous issue. I am not going to go into that detail, but basically we all know how bad Caleb has it, right? Poor guy always gets mischaracterized, and the whole incest situation with how some part of global fans perceive him just make things worse. And maybe I'll get into that in another video, but for now, the point is of MC as a child in Caleb's lap. So people pointed it out. They were like, hey, this is horrible. Like, don't do this. Like, how could you draw something like this? And immediately there was another faction of people who came into the defense of the fan artist. They defended the fan artist by saying that, well, how do you know that this is not an adult MC? Just because the MC isn't tall, isn't, heavily chested, or looks voluptuous and all of that stuff, doesn't mean that you say that the MC is a child. So they were defending also by saying that the MC is an Asian, right? I mean, that's how we assume the MC to be in general, at least by the game standard. So MC looks in Asian people have the youth gene, right? They look extremely young. They look years younger than their age. And Asian women in specific, they look very, very, very young. And some of them are even flat-chested and really short and petite. So hence, this is the adult but petite MC in Caleb's lap. It's not a child. But I don't think that argument was a good one because, heck, as someone who's just least involved in anything going on Twitter, any controversial thing, even I looked at it and thought that looks suspiciously like a child, and it's just weird to see this on the timeline. Although that was my personal opinion, it seemed that other people also reflected the same thought, because they got around, they banded together and spread awareness about the fact that such a fan art was making rounds. They were visibly disgusted by the post. There were several retweets, quote tweets. Is that what you say? Quote tweets, where they quote the fan art and spread that stuff everywhere. And that resulted in the fan artist, I think, making their account private, because I haven't seen their account pop up in my timeline anymore. So they made their account private and they also deleted the artwork. Now, the other side, the side that was defending the fan artists, were visibly upset and very, very angry at the fact that they think the fan artist got bullied into deleting their fan art. Because in their minds, they still believe that the justification to this argument was that the MC is grown adult woman, but drawn as a small, petite little child. Which, by the way, later got disproved when somebody found out that the fan artist did actually engage in these taboo topics of incest and non-con and I don't know, maybe pedophilia, but don't quote me on that, because there was just a screenshot of tags that somebody found out, and they had like a list of different tags that was all just like really, really crazy. I don't remember it because it was 3 days ago. So please forgive me, I don't remember it clearly, but definitely had to do with incest. At least one of the tags did. So it was proven, and I don't know what happened after that. This situation, I think, simmered down, and people were more excited about the update as well. So I think the situation kind of dissolved by itself. But it provides a perfect foundation for us to talk about freedom of creative expression and morality. Now, fandoms are a space for creative freedom, for exploration of taboo and self-expression. They're spaces where we get to be funny, we get to be witty, and just have all kinds of interesting conversations like this one. But generally it's a place where we get to be ourselves and engage in all kinds of shenanigans. Yet they're also shared spaces, meaning that anything harmful or triggering or morally questionable content can leak into public zone and cause real harm. Now, the whole point is the balancing of freedom of expression with community safety and moral boundaries. That is the key concern here. So, can these explorations of these taboo topics be considered as Harmful? Yes, if they perpetuate harmful ideals, then absolutely this entire thing can become a big disaster, right? Especially in fandoms with already delicate balance going on. For example, this fandom, Lad's tweet, where we are already hanging by the thread. If it's not the threats of the CN server girlies saying that they want a complete global shutdown, then there are infighting with allies versus allies situation. Then you have gross mischaracterization of the allies and various other issues that never stop cropping up. Every single time, by the way. We can never stop people from exploring dark and taboo topics and making artworks and fan works out of it or creating fiction out of it, because in the end we all exist in a gray space. Fandoms are not black and white. They're gray and uncomfortable and uneasy, and most of us try to exist somewhere or try our best to exist somewhere in a comfortable zone where it's neither too black and nor too white. So it does become then a big question as to what are we going to allow in this fandom. Now, personally, I don't think it's possible to completely and fully moderate spaces to that level of strict discipline. It's just not possible. But I believe that when you have communities, like little communities within the fandom themselves, I believe that it's their job to try and moderate as much as possible to the best of their extent. Because we risk the idea of triggering and harmful things leaking out in public, and then it becomes a big disaster and creates a very negative situation for everyone involved, both for people outside the fandom and those inside it, because you know that we are not escaping any kind of judgment. We've already witnessed so many kinds of judgment just for being in this fandom alone, just for playing the game, just for interacting with it, for the parasocialism that we knowingly engage with, despite the fact that we all know that we are all adults here, most of us, hopefully, and we are well aware of what kind of parasocialism we are all indulging. I believe that we are at least self-aware to that point. But it becomes a very distressing situation when harmful ideals are involved, taboo topics are involved, and if they become glorified, and if people are trying to normalize that in a public space, then that becomes a huge problem. It becomes a whole nother disaster. So I believe that it's us within our little spaces, our little communities, that need to make sure as much as possible to moderate our spaces, our small little spaces, as much as possible. Now, I was thinking about, okay, but why would these people engage in, certain dark topics like incest and whatnot? I think it has something to do with trying to explore their own darkness. And there are sometimes survivors who do this in a way of coping up, a sort of coping mechanism, I believe, where they feel like they're going through this situation in a more controlled manner. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just giving you an idea of what I believe that could be going on underneath the surface of why people would want to engage in these kind of things. I personally prefer hanging out in more clean spaces as much as possible. I avoid all the triggering stuff because I am super sensitive. Anything that is triggering will take me like 3 to 4 business days to get back to normal and just be normal again and enjoy normal things again. It's just that level, that is the heightened level of what I go through every day. This is why a lot of things are just overwhelming for me, and I try my best to stay off these things. The problem is people don't stick within their confined spaces, within their little communities. And in the case of the incident that I mentioned with the artwork, where it was spread publicly, it could have been triggering to someone who actually went through an essay at a very young age. It could have been triggering. What turned out to be a safe space for them could be a place of an anxiety attack, a space of, a recall of PTSD. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but you get what I'm saying. Panic disorder of sorts. So, and we don't want that. We don't want the fandom to turn into these triggering spaces. At the same time, how do you balance the ideas of creative freedom by confining into their spaces that are clearly marked with warnings, with trigger warnings, and kept to themselves? That is how I see things should be maintained. Now, as to whether that happens or not, you can be the better judge of that, because I already gave you a whole explanation of the incident that just happened as an example. Here, I will also add in that moral policing sometimes can be done to an extreme level, where people might have issues. I'm saying this just as an example. I know absolutely no one has an issue with smut, but I'm just saying smut or spice, or they might be having issues, like I said, with the whole idea of Caleb situation. You guys know he faces a lot of incestuous allegations. So it can work in an opposite way as well, where people do not understand the cultural nuance, and that is what was missing when Caleb dropped in and they suddenly started saying that, oh my god, this is horrible, we don't approve of this. The global side, of course, saying all of the stuff that we don't approve, this is so incestuous and all of that stuff. So yeah, fandom policing can become very extreme as well. They can end up being very purity insisting and not very understanding of how everybody is really hanging out in these spaces. Fandoms are just generally so very messy that it's hard to understand what chaos is ensuing at what place. I already mentioned it in my last video that people just have been going all out at each other's throats at the littlest of things. So when it comes to like very heavy duty topics, right, like very dark stuff, and if someone is actually indulging in harmful idealization of these topics, then who steps in and tells them to not do it anymore, or like they should stop, or to boycott them? Who's going to do that? And who's going to listen also? That's a very important thing. Who's going to listen? Because people are already burned down. Most people would avoid getting involved in any kind of conflict regarding this fandom or regarding things going on in this fandom, because like I said, every other day we have something or the other going on. So this also brings us to the point of desensitization, which is what we can end up suffering from if we are way too exposed to the glorification or these ideals getting pushed constantly without any criticism. But I would also say that fiction can be, or these kind of topics can be a safe space for trauma processing, dark fantasy exploration, and often testing moral boundaries in controlled environments. Now, so to reiterate my point, when it comes to fandom and self-policing becoming necessary, it should happen when real-world harmful rhetoric or behavior is promoted under the guise of fiction or artwork. Triggering harmful content leaks into general and untagged fandom spaces. Marginalized groups or survivors feeling silenced, unsafe, or excluded. Content becoming glorification of harm and not exploration. But fandoms shouldn't police when content stays in very contained and opt-in spaces like locked servers and tags. Now, people explore dark fiction without endorsing real-world harm. That is an important point to note. And critical distance being maintained between fantasy and reality. Now, if we come to the crux of this entire, topic, who gets to draw the line between what is moral and what is immoral, what is acceptable and what is unacceptable? The straight answer is no one. Because no one controls fandoms. Fandoms are a very messy place by in itself. Very messy place. So no one gets to control fandoms. No one gets to control morality. Boundaries are set though. So boundaries are set. There are platform policies. There are community norms. Unspoken fandom rules that we all abide by. And this is where that whole incident also comes in. There are mod teams and admins. And there are social reinforcement, call-outs, blocking, exclusions, and all that stuff when the lines are crossed, which is just what I mentioned happened in the incident. Now, that is where I believe that freedom of expression ends, when it violates community safety, when people start feeling unsafe in what is supposed to be a safe place. Especially for... So the responsibility lies with us in the end to create that balance, to create a safe space for everyone to exist in. And while we are on the topic of safe space, I would like to take this opportunity to request you all to be respectful towards one another, especially in the comment section. Please refrain from calling each other any kind of racial slurs, any kind of discriminatory language, because you guys do remember that some week ago, probably some 2 weeks ago, I posted, I don't think some of the new subscribers are probably aware of this, but I got a screenshot about someone calling straight women who were playing this game lots of racial slurs, lots of slurs in general, about being a feminazi, a femcel, all of that stuff. I do not want people coming into this comment section, taking screenshots and spreading it in other places of social media, and then, giving all of us a bad rep. We don't deserve that. We are already fighting so hard for our space, for our respect, for our dignity. Let us not become one of them, one of those kind of people who indulge in name calling and mudslinging and throwing horrible discriminatory slurs towards the other. We are not a Valorant lobby. We are not the horrible people who exist in that lobby. And I do say that without any remorse. I know that place is god awful. We are not that people. Neither should we aim to be. This is a safe place for everyone. Everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome to engage in respectfully. Because this place is a place that I want for us to feel at ease in, right? It's my job as a person who's hosting this channel to make sure that everyone is comfortable. I care about you, and I care about how we are engaging in this space. So it's my heartfelt request to each and every one of you. Please, please, I urge you to be respectful to each other. You can vent out your frustrations, absolutely yes. But as long as you maintain the decency and the decorum of the space you're engaging. You guys, I trust you guys. And I know that you guys are probably one of the kindest souls. You've got so much compassion. And I trust that based on the way you guys interact with me, I have a huge level of trust. I know that the people who talk to me with so much of kindness have kindness in their hearts as well. Let us not be one of them. Let us be us, right? So with that being said, I will take my leave now. I will sign out. Please do take care of yourselves, and all the best to all the people still grinding. Have a wonderful, wonderful day or night. Please take care of yourselves. Bye-bye. This is Nori signing out.